a very brief introduction of myself and ACM Book Club. My name is Najol. I'm the social media manager at ACM and also the organizer of the ACM Book Club series. The ACM Book Club is an ongoing series where we select book of interest and relevance to the computing community, and we would read together over a period of time, usually 1 to 2 months. During this period, highlights from the book will be shared to our social media channels on a weekly basis, alongside with comments and questions from our lead readers and authors, if available. Our lead readers are ACM experts like Marlene Mangami, our lead reader for the inaugural book club session, which we're so happy to have, and such a great guest for our inaugural session. And also, the virtual book club will usually conclude with an online discussion like we're having, like the one we're having now. Let me also do a very brief introduction of, excuse my internet connection. It's not super good at the moment. So Marlene Mangami is a senior developer advocate specializing in Python and AI, and my computer scientist, a keynote speaker, and explorer. She's the current chair of the ACM Practitioner Board and was the previous vice chair of the Python Software Foundation and led the first PyCon Africa. Thank you for joining us today, Marlene.
No problem. Thank you, Na. And thanks for joining us. I know it's like a weekend and it's the holiday, so was not expecting a huge turnout. But thanks. I see Ronald and Victoria. I don't know if we want to just introduce ourselves a bit, just for before we start. I think someone else is just about to join. But yeah, I'm Marlene. I'll go first and say I'm Marlene. Like Na said, I am currently working at Microsoft and I work as a senior developer advocate. I focus on Python and AI, and yeah, and really enjoyed that. And have I'm based in London, so it's been so fun reading the book actually, because lots of the book is based there. So, yeah, if you want to, you can introduce yourselves to um, Ronald and Victoria. I don't know. Like,
I can go. Hi, everyone. My name is Ronald. I'm from Brazil, talking from Rio de Janeiro. Uh, I'm a software developer and also a computer scientist. So um, I I've seen the blog post, the LinkedIn posts about this meeting, and I was got excited. Although I only saw this week, so I didn't have much time to read, but I'm pretty excited about the club. And I would like to ask a question about if this club will continue with other books in the next year. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
yeah, welcome. I believe so. Na, do you have
Yes.
any thoughts on the club continuing?
For sure, yeah. This we hope this will be an ongoing series.
Yeah.
And for next year, we're in the planning stage for next year's book club sessions, and we would definitely love you guys to join us with this ongoing series and have this continuous conversations about interesting books on computing and technology in general. So yeah, the
That's cool.
answer is
Thank
yes.
you.
Cool.
Okay. I see Victoria on the line as well. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Victoria. I'm a Python developer in my spare time, but professionally, I'm a systems engineer. I'm based out of Ohio, and I'm going back to school for computer science, and hopefully, we'll see maybe get a minor in physics. But I'm figuring
Yeah.
things out, so we'll see. But I just recently signed up for ACM again, and I actually found out about the book club on Mastodon, which was nice because I'm pretty
Very
active in the
nice.
amateur radio, ham radio communities on there, and I happen to see it. So I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. Yeah, very excited and yeah, excited to hear about like going back and doing computer science. I think it's such a great field. Great time to be doing it as well. Really good time for it. Um, I also saw someone else, Ramya, I think, join, but I feel free if you'd like at any point to introduce yourself, Ramya. But like, well, if you'd like, it's fine. So I will get started. It's not a problem at all if you haven't read the book. I thought I would just go ahead and do a bit of an introduction to the book. So we're reading this book for the book club, which is This Is for Everyone, The Unfinished Story of the World Wide Web. So can you see, I'm supposed to be sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, great, perfect. Um, so I just thought I would do a quick introduction before we discuss, and this introduction will also have like some discussion of things in it. So the first thing I want to share, so this book in general is hang on, let me also admit someone. But the book in general is a biography slash manifesto by Tim Berners-Lee. So if you haven't heard about Tim Berners-Lee, he is the inventor of the World Wide Web. He also created HTML, the URL system, and HTTP. So these are obviously very big technologies, very influential standards. And one thing I will mention that reading the book made me realize is that all of this was created like so recently. Uh, the World Wide Web itself was created in 1989. So that's pretty much the 90s, you know? And Tim is alive today and he's working as a research fellow at the University of Oxford. And he also is building something called the Solid Project. We'll get into that a bit later. And he's also has his own startup called Inrupt. That's also pushing the solid technologies as well. He is an ACM Turing Award winner. And something as well that surprised me when I was reading the book was just how much the ACM was mentioned in the book. And Tim, the book kind of at some points tells his story about how he came up with the idea for the web. And one of the ideas, one of the important points in that process was him reading one of the special editions of an ACM publication on hypertext. And that really gave him like a lot of ideas about links and things like that. And so it was very cool to see Tim talk about the ACM. So if you aren't a member, you should definitely join if you'd like to. That's a bit of a plug for the ACM. Yeah, so I just will go over a couple of slides with some notes about the book progression, some of the themes that I was seeing when I was reading, and then we'll have some discussions with some questions right at the end. So initially, the book outlines Tim's early childhood. He was born in London, and he was actually born in the same year as Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. And he comments on that in the book, saying that the time he was born was actually really influential for him being able to create the web because it was just when pieces of computers and stuff like that, personal computers were becoming accessible. So you didn't just have these super expensive computers, you have some things that were a little bit more affordable. And throughout the book, actually, he talks about how he was really interested in building computers. So really building a computer from scratch, which is interesting to know that you could do that. But he would like literally was taking a TV, an old TV, and connecting it to different wires to actually build out his own computer. So there's lots of nice stories about his early childhood. Both his parents were mathematicians and electronic engineers, and they knew Alan Turing. So again, you know, some of the themes there had me thinking about, you know, where does innovation come from? Is it just someone is born a genius with this desire to create computers and is just a genius? Or is it also this combination of being born to the right parents and being born at the right time? So everything can come together. So there's lots of really interesting things there about his childhood and how it kind of prepared him to create the web. Then later on, we see in the book that he goes to CERN and he's working at CERN. He's there as a programmer. He's basically managing the data at CERN, which is it's kind of like a research institute in Switzerland. And they're not doing anything about computer programming. They're not researching programming at all. They are researching particle physics and like little things like that. And so it was a little bit adjacent of what he was doing. But there were so many people from different parts of the world that were coming together to do this research. And the Research Institute itself had a lot of data that they were collecting, and they wanted to uh, have people sharing ideas and come up with ideas to make them as impactful as possible. So Tim, working in his department, recognized that, there's lots of people, great ideas, maybe speaking different languages, but they're not coming together as much to share ideas. And the internet was already there, but they didn't have a way to like exchange that data. So he proposed something called Mesh. And Mesh just basically added hyperlinks to the internet. And it was a way to be able to go from one person's computer or a document that one person had on their computer to jump to another person's computer on the network. And he was really excited about this idea. He had two C's that he would talk about whenever he would talk about Mesh, and those were creativity and collaboration. That was his original vision, was really to see people creative and sharing all of these ideas. He talks a lot about how information in isolation isn't helpful for anyone, and that the best way to do things is to be collaborating. So we have a good amount of time where he's talking about this story. There's a picture in the book as well of the initial idea of Mesh, and later on he changes this idea, so the name for this, to be the World Wide Web, because he thought it would be catchier, and because he also thought that mesh could be confused for mess. People could easily say that. And so he thought all of this connectivity of the data generally looked like a web of sorts, and so he called it that. And then he also coined another term called intercreativity, which is the ability for a group of people to be creative. So really, again, emphasizing this people coming together, people working together to be more creative with the idea around the web. So after this, we have this initial time where I would say the vibe in the early chapters is very high optimism. There's a lot of creativity in the book at this point. And maybe I'll stop here and kind of get some thoughts from you all in terms of some those that beginning part there. How much when we're talking about innovation? So there have been a lot of innovations recently in tech that have come out that are interesting, and in computer science, things that have come around. What would you attribute the special sauce? If we were to say, how did Tim become this person who had the ability to create something like the World Wide Web? Do you think that it's just the time he was born, or the fact that he was like the superhuman, intelligent person? Or do you think it was the fact that his parents were really smart and his parents knew Alan Turing, and sometimes the parents would be talking about computers? Uh, or is it in the environment he was in? At CERN, he was sharing a lot of information with people from all over the world, and they were exchanging ideas. What do we think is the secret to creating something new? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I think you're right. Like, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's a product of the environment and his optimism and him putting the pieces together. Like, I think eventually something similar might have come about, but I think he was the glue that took the ideas and like made the magic happen for the World Wide Web at that time.
Yeah.
Like, he had the motivation, he had the environment, and he also had access to resources to make it happen. So I think it's a little bit of everything
Yeah.
that really just kind of made it all come together in 1989.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. There's definitely parts of the book where he's also talking about how for him he felt like it was this mix of things and that it wasn't, he never actually had an aha moment of, or he didn't have a moment of like eureka moment, right? Where it's just like one thing and everything is fixed. It was like small pieces over time, like information from here or information from when he was growing up, and then having the resources at CERN as well. So I definitely agree with that. I think that's spot on. Any other thoughts? Do we feel free to unmute if you have thoughts? I see a couple of people who joined us as well. If not, we will keep going and then come back to some more questions as well a bit later. Okay. So this was the first bit of the book. Lots of optimism, lots of creativity there. He's building computers from scratch. He's created the web. There's lots of optimism around the web as well. And so at some point, the book we start to see that the web is taking off and people are adopting it more around the world. And as the internet was growing, there were other projects that were kind of trying to do similar things where they were trying to gain adoption of different standards. And there were some projects that tried to monetize right away. And maybe they saw an opportunity that this is going to work and we need to charge people for it. And Tim didn't think that was a good idea. His original idea kind of was influenced by this research environment that he was in, where the goal with those environments is really just information sharing and learning from each other. So having this open environment where you can collaboratively share ideas instead of having these, he talks about walled gardens a lot, right? So with these walled gardens, you kind of have to pay for access to be able to get certain information or things like that. And initially, a couple of people had tried this walled gardens idea, and those ideas didn't take off as quickly with Tim. His approach was more that he wanted people to collaborate together, coming from this research background. And so he actually approached CERN when the internet started to, when the web started to get, the internet was already there, when the web started to get more popular, he asked CERN to relinquish the intellectual property and to make the web open and really just for everyone. And CERN agreed to that and ultimately made the web open for people to use with certain permissions. And also coming out of that, when it started to get more popular, he also was noticing that different companies would get involved or different people were doing things that could potentially stifle the web and force people to pay earlier on. So there's actually a very interesting story in the book about Mark Andreessen, who is, I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he is a venture capitalist that's in Silicon Valley right now. And there's a very fun story about Mark, who created one of the first browsers. And at some point, Mark, I think, was trying to hijack the idea of the web from Tim. And there was a whole thing about it. And at some point, he was taking credit where he should not have. And Mark goes on to create this really big company that's a different browser. It didn't work, but he does still go on to create a different browser called Netscape that also started gaining in popularity. And really started this idea. So the book talks a lot, spends a good amount of time looking at how we got the cookies. So, with cookies that collect user information and then can track people with ads. And so he kind of tracks Netscape and seeing Mark's involvement with this and monetizing the web in this way. And some of those things really not being positive things over time. But to counteract some of the things he was seeing, he created W3C, which is a nonprofit. It's the W3C consortium that governs the standards that are out there and tries to make it so that everyone has a voice in deciding what the standards are around the web. They also do things like implementing things for the web that are helpful, like accessibility. They try to lower the costs for users. They had a patent policy as well that they put into place. And I didn't know this, but one of the other stories in the book was that domain names used to be free. So you could have a domain name and register it, and it would be completely free. And there was a researcher that used to run this department in a company that would, if there were any clashes or disagreements where someone wanted a domain name but another person had it, they would take it to this company and to this department, and they would moderate and decide who would ultimately get the domain name. But then that computer scientist died, and then the US government then sold the company, they auctioned it off, and then someone bought it and started selling domain names. Otherwise, domain names today would have been free. So really, there's a sort of second arc in the book where we see the growth of the web, and there's this fight between these open standards and having a more open approach to the web. Tim travels a lot during this time. He works with a lot of different governments, and he comments a lot on the economic growth that he's seeing around the world. And he goes to Africa, for example, and tries to improve access to the web on mobile devices, and that works. And there's a lot of good that comes out there from meeting governments and things like that. So some of the themes I thought were interesting there were kind of about just openness. And this is a great quote that I saw. And it says, more importantly, so this is a picture of Tim in Uganda. He says, more importantly, there was the public good to consider. The internet had so much potential to bring people together. Pioneering into the future, I could see a day where everyone was coming online. Should they be segmented into for-profit walled gardens? Should they be bound by conventional barriers of nationality and language? Was that what the internet was for? Not if I could help it. So you really have this open idea. Maybe I'll pause here for a little bit and see if anyone has any thoughts on it. Do we think that this idea has lasted? What do we think has ultimately won over? Did we get the open web we have expected? And today, I was even seeing online the other day, there's a lot of there's lots of people who are very pro tech, and actually, especially now with AI, there's lots of people that are very, very, maybe even on the extreme end, pro tech. And then there's lots of people as well that are very much, I saw someone actually saying that they think we need to stop tech progressing at all, and we just need to stop the computers. And the web has been a big part of that. Do we think in general the web has been a net positive for society or a net negative? Any thoughts or ideas on that?
I think overall it's positive. Right now we are here talking about a book, and we will
Yeah,
never be able to do that without that invention. And that's a positive thing, I think.
yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, it's being able to really connect people in a way that would not, I mean, I'm in London and I mean, you're all in different parts of the world, so that would not have happened if the web was not there. So definitely lots of positives there, for sure. Any other thoughts on pros and cons?
Hello, Marlene.
Yes, hi.
Oh, yeah. I think I'll be looking at it from the negative side of it. The reason why I said so is because the use of the internet now actually makes a lot of people to lack creativity. As it, I can actually take myself for an example. We so much rely on AI now, to do some of those things. No, we can literally do it, without help of AI back in those days. I happened to be in a secondary school early 2000s, when I started my early schools then. So we do really have much of this internet. back then, but now I think everything is quite easy now. So there's no more creativity like before again. So, which I believe is one of the negative side effects of the internet. Yeah.
Um, Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I definitely agree with you in terms of sometimes the over-reliance on tech can make us less creative and less likely to write on paper, for example, or create art in some ways, or we just see the same ideas over and over again. A lot of people say AI kind of normalizes things as well. So yeah, I would agree in some ways it's negative. Yeah. Any other thoughts on AI?
Yeah. So I think overall, the internet's been net positive. I think we are reaching a point where there might be like, I don't know if a downtrend's the right phrase, but like I feel like overall over the last like, since 1989, it's, when the World Wide Web was invented, I feel like overall it's a net positive, but there are a lot of negatives that come up. And I really appreciate later in the book, not to get too far ahead, about like some of the solutions that Tim proposes about, whether it's a solid project or like, more governance,
Yeah,
army governance, and just trying to maybe course correct a little, you
yep,
know? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And we are getting to that next in terms of, yeah, I completely agree with you that we have, I think the original intent for it was very positive and we've gotten a lot of good, but where we are now, I think we need some course correction for sure. And the book advocates for that, which that's actually a fantastic segue, Victoria, to the main thesis of the book, which is on data sovereignty, is the main manifesto. So Tim spends a lot of time talking towards the end of the book about the solid project and data sovereignty. So I'll read two quotes and kind of explain a little bit more about that. So the first quote is, "There's still time to build machines that serve the human rather than the other way around. There's still time to forge connections between people and use technology to fight for our rights. There's still time to recapture our data sovereignty." Data sovereignty is a term most people associate with nations, but in my speech, I suggest what it really meant was that individuals should have control over their own data. So basically this was the thesis of the book, or the manifesto of the book, was he believes individuals need to have control over their own data. And the reason for that is he believes that there are good and bad sides of the internet or of the web. And on the web, so for example, in Australia, there was recently a law passed where they are just banning children from getting onto the web or being on social media, for example. But some people have said we should just stop children from going on the internet at all. People should not be on the web because it's so it can be so negative. And Tim talks a little bit about how there's a attention economy that tries to keep people on the platform. So it uses addictive algorithms to be able to keep people. So this diagram I got from his website, and it's kind of mentioned in passing in the book. But on the left side, we have the negative things that are part of the internet of the web, and then on the right side, we have more positive things. So on the left side, he's talking about these social media platforms, platforms like YouTube and all the social media platforms. I won't pick on one, X, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. And these social media platforms can lead to, because of the algorithms, really negative outcomes for people. So, we see here they can lead to lying and addiction, because what the creators, he talks about capital maximizing, where these companies have come in and decided to create to make as much money off of these platforms as possible by advertising. So keeping people on that platform so they can have more advertising for them. And so your data is a big part of being able to keep you on the platform and being able to, these platforms will usually look and see what are your preferences or what demographic are you in, and then be able to target certain content to you. So I've noticed this, for example, on Twitter, which is now called X, where if I'll be online, and I tried this actually recently, where I created a new account, and the only thing I put on the account was I am interested in technology, right? That was the main interest space that I put on the thing. And then, at first, the For You feed just was feeding me other people who are posting about general technology and things like that. And then a news article came up at some point about Europe talking about data sovereignty because there was a clash in Europe. Some people were banned from traveling because of saying something to Elon Musk or things like that. And I clicked on that article. And after I clicked on that article, my entire feed from then on started to be more and more of this rage bait, which was just people being angry about the new policies or things like that in Europe. And it's hard to turn away from this information when you are kind of being sucked in with these algorithms. So he talks a little bit about the negative sides of what these platforms have become to keep people online and increasing polarization, for example. And then he also on this website, he has like on the other side, we see some more positive examples. So there is Blue Sky, there's Mastodon. That's a great example there of sites that are using uh, this decentralized method for be able to create these social media sites. And basically, these allow you to be able to choose what algorithm you have. You control your own data. So the companies are not changing the algorithm to keep you there. And these should lead to better online communication, collaboration, community knowledge, more sharing, and things of that nature. So maybe let's stop here for a little bit. Let's talk a bit about this idea. Do you see this good and bad side of the internet? What do we see? Have you experienced this before in your own lives of these platforms? How are we feeling about social media? Are we on social media at the moment? Some people have completely opted out and are not on social media at all, by the way, which is amazing if you can do it. Anyone have any thoughts on social media today?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Um, yeah, I used to be on Facebook. Well, I still technically have an account, but uh, one of the themes that have come up, the rage, the rage clicking and all that stuff of like where your feed just becomes like doom and dread and stuff. Like that's why I just had to step away from Facebook for several months now, because it was negatively impacting my well-being because like I would go on there to check on my friends and then like 3 hours later I'm like, where did the time go?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and I'm like watching all these reels and stuff and I'm like, I'm getting nothing out of it. And so I'm still on social media, like I'm on Mastodon, I'm on Blue Sky and a few other things, but like I'm more intentional now about my time I spend on it. Like I'll check notifications, but like I'll be like, I'm only gonna like look at it for like half an hour, you
Yeah.
know, or like maybe once I respond to these messages, I'll close out of it and then like come back, maybe later today, like an evening or something. Um, I think as far as like a positive or negative, like I think some platforms are better at cultivating that positivity than like because like Facebook, like Tim mentions in the book, like Facebook and certain platforms, like they capitalize on that negativity.
Yeah,
You know, they
100%.
they need that engagement because they're not trying to sell you a positive outcome. They're trying to increase the time on the screen so they can show you more ads and make more profit, etc.
Exactly.
So like that's why like I'm a huge fan of like Mastodon, because like there's not like some big algorithm, it's literally who you follow. You get to pick who you follow.
Yeah.
Um, and some servers are more better about cultivating that positivity and compassion than other servers, but
Mm.
like I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm sure like with any technology or any platform, there's going to be a certain percentage of like bad actors,
Yeah.
no matter how hard you try. But I think overall, like, you it's difficult, but I think like it is possible to seek out what Tim's goal is of like the positivity, the compassion, and like the the better things on social media.
Yes, completely agree with you. Yeah, I've consistently tried to detox from these sites, and it's so difficult. I'm always like, gosh, because like if I just got like I've tried this holiday season to be like, I'm just not going to go on social media. And then like sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm just going to go on for like an hour or something like that. The whole day. I'm on there the whole day. I'm shouting at someone's uncle because the uncle is saying wild things and it just gets out of control. And then you end up feeling like the time has just passed, and it's so intentional because they want you on the platforms. The algorithms are designed to keep you there. So it can be very, very, very negative. Has anyone else had experiences with this that they'd like to share?
I guess I can talk a little bit as the social media manager,
Yeah.
who has to who has to manage social media accounts for ACM.
Yeah.
And I love that some of you discovered our book club discussion on Mastodon, because that's so far my favorite social media channel to like platform to manage, because it doesn't um like one thing about Mastodon is that it's not driven by, algorithm or like a very aggressive
Yeah.
algorithm. And also it doesn't offer marketers any statistic tools. So the only thing you can get, like the only way you can gauge the performance of certain content is by actually engaging with them and see how folks
Yeah.
respond to them and start a conversation around it. Whereas with Facebook, I think that's one of the most extreme examples. It has the most aggressive algorithm I've noticed. Um, Sometimes we notice that some of our posts can get like impressions, while others can only get as little as like 500 impressions. And the only difference is that the former one is probably more entertaining. It has sort of like go viral quality. But
Mm.
as we all know, not all go viral content is good for you.
Yeah.
And I think by guiding the user toward, like pointing them toward more easy content. Facebook is actually creating a very toxic environment for meaningful conversations to happen. Yeah, at least that's how I've observed over the past few years.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And I think Mastodon is an example of a site that follows the same sort of hope that Tim has with the Solid project, being decentralized, decentralizing that data so it can't be taken advantage of by these algorithms, or it's not uh, just focused on targeting people in certain ways. So I think you probably have the best view into it, actually doing social media as your job. And yeah, it's super interesting. I think these things can be used for good, And it's amazing because we have a global community. ACM is an incredible global community. But how do we make sure that we are consuming the information and being part of these communities in a healthy way? So he did. This is the main thing that Tim in the book was talking about was solid. And towards the end, with the data sovereignty, the Solid project basically allows you as a user to have all your data in a pod somewhere. So, we were talking about how uh, right now, if you go and you have an app that has maybe Facebook on a phone here, and then Facebook is going to collect different data about you. It's going to have your images. It's going to have some, I don't know, demographic data, whatever data it can access. And that information, when Facebook has that information, like not shared, it is going to be using that information to target you and to market things to you. And so this can be really used negatively against people and leads to that polarization and things like that. Whereas with Solid, what we want to see is more so you as the user now having control, where you have your own pod, and that's where all of your data is stored. And then you decide which apps get access to what data. So maybe if I'm going on Facebook, I only want Facebook to know, to have access to my contacts, my immediate contacts. I only wanted to have access to my music preferences or something like that. That way, Facebook is not somehow navigating to find out information about I don't know, my political opinions in some ways. And so you have more control a little bit there by giving these apps access to only a certain amount of data. He proposes something called linked data. And it uses the RDF protocol. So this is it's all URLs, and you can send connected information to online. So it's more so creating a graph of information where you you can see a property and entities are connected to properties. And mainly it's focusing on the relationships between information. And that also allows you to get richer information, is what he's saying from that. So he's also thinking in the book, he kind of posits this in preparation for the AI, for the agentic web, which he says is coming. So he believes that AI agents at some point everyone is going to, or all sites are going to be using AI agents, and these are going to be very powerful. And so we really want to make sure that we're limiting the amount of information that an AI agent has access to without our permission. So we want to make sure they only access certain pieces of information. So this was the Solid idea. Do we think this idea of limiting information is going to solve the problem? What did we think about the ultimate solution that he gave? So I actually also, one thing I will mention is that I went and did some research on Solid as well. There's a community already. And I did mention, I think, that Tim has his own startup that he's creating around this. So he's not leading Solid anymore, it's someone else, but he's kind of building a company around it. And there is an open source community around Solid, but it seems like this would fundamentally change the way the web works. For this to work, you would have to have everyone be able to keep their data somewhere and to have the apps interact with the data in some way. Do we think this is something that's possible, that's going to happen? And do we think it's going to solve the problem? What were our thoughts on Solid?
Yeah. So I think it's a good solution. I think eventually it could solve the problem, but I think the uphill battle is going to be buy-in from corporations that are already kind of exploiting like those private silos of data, you
Yeah.
know, because like I think like that there has to be some like push or incentive, I guess, for like
Mm.
whether it's government legislation or,
Yeah.
something in order for like the adoption to spread. Because like, it's like with the World Wide Web and CERN, like CERN relinquished all control of it, which
Yeah.
is one of the things that contributed to the rapid growth of the World Wide Web. And
Exactly.
that's what they're doing with the Solid project. But unfortunately, like Facebook doesn't really have an incentive to adopt Solid, sadly,
Yeah.
because they're already maximizing their profits without it,
Yeah.
Um, now, if another social media company comes along and like builds on Solid and utilizes Solid, I think that might have a chance of maybe overtaking Facebook someday. I don't know
Yeah.
what that would look like. Um, but I'm optimistic. I think it's one good solution. I don't know if it's going to be the solution that absolutely gets us out of the situation we're currently in on the internet, though.
Yeah. I completely agree with you that the incentives, I mean, we live in a world that's driven by profit, and what they want to see is like, how is this going to profit us? The current system they have is working great, and it's kind of centralizing power in one place. So I think convincing these companies would be difficult. I do think one of the things that I thought was interesting about the book was he does tell the story of how the web developed in terms of the fact that it started out very slowly, and it started out with like a computer science scientist in somewhere hacking away and discovering this, and then him going to a conference and giving a talk about it, and people being like, oh, that's such an interesting idea, I love the idea, and getting these people who were like who bought into the idea. There were lots of people he met that were just like not interested at all in the idea, but he said a couple of people bought into the idea and understood what he was trying to say. And that group of people was able to get together. They had the first conference and so on. And it was that movement of people, sort of grassroots movement, that ultimately led to them being able to win out. And I wonder if that would be possible today, maybe not necessarily with the just with the social media. Maybe it's thinking about how we create new apps for like a chat GPT. What does a chat GPT look like where I control my own data? Right now, if you're going to chat GPT today, guess who's got your data and all your deepest, darkest secrets? It's OpenAI that's got your data and your secrets. And so, what does it look like to maybe rethink what's maybe a new ChatGPT or a new application like that that has all of those benefits that ChatGPT offers, but maybe you as a user have control over the data that you're feeding it, the information, you have all of that access. And so, I don't know, what do we think about non-social media, maybe more thinking about the AI revolution there? Probably have time for one more chat and then we'll end for the day. Do we have any thoughts? Are we using AI at all? Do we use ChatGPT? Is one question, for example. Yes, no, yeah, no. Okay, yeah, maybe some people don't, and that's also fine. But I will say, ChatGPT is oh, someone just arrived, but we are just about to end. Some information that I would like for us to think about, maybe as we wrap out as well. Tim posits this book or the Solid project, even how he's framing stuff. If you go to the Inrupt website, which is his startup, he is really positioning the Solid project for the future he thinks is coming with AI. He thinks more people are going to be using AI. He sees that being the direction of where he's going. And so he's now positioning the Solid project to be like, this is going to be the thing that helps us with the AI situation. And some information, some interesting stats. ChatGPT is now like the fifth most visited website in the world. And that happened. I mean, when was it created? Like 2024, 23, or something like that. Super, super recently. and it's risen in popularity to become this really a site that people use a lot. And again, we're starting to see the same patterns we saw with the web of wanting to keep people on the platform. We're starting to see a little bit more of that in ChatGPT, where the model can be tuned to be a little bit friendlier than it should be. The number one use right now for models is as a therapist. People are chatting to the models as therapists. And there's lots of different things that make this a potentially dangerous situation as people share more information. So my feeling when I came out of this book was, I think this is a great option if we are able to take people off of ChatGPT and off of sharing that information with OpenAI, and maybe having them share that information with a fully local version of this. Inrupt is building their own. There's open source LLMs that can live on your machine that are small language models, for example. So that's something I'm thinking about. I would love to believe that the social media part, we can redeem it. I think social media, we can't redeem it. I think we've got to use it because this is the world we find ourselves in. But maybe it's going to happen. I'm hoping. But I actually think that the next thing that the Solid project could change, I think, is the AI stuff. So yeah, that's my thoughts after reading the book. I think that's pretty much all we have for today. Does anyone else have any last thoughts before we end off?
Oh yeah, thank you very much. This is a wonderful section, and it's actually my first time of joining this platform, and I really enjoyed the club. And all right, thank you very much. And
Amazing.
one more thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to uninstall my Facebook now because of what the other speaker said. Because like the only thing coming out of this social media is the negative thing to me. Because when I just want to check something, I find out I spend over 5 hours and I didn't really achieve anything reasonable. So I think the best thing for me right now is to uninstall some of all this platform that is not really helpful to me. So I don't know. I'm just speaking to myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think the platforms like Mastodon, platforms like Blue Sky are hopefully a redemptive form of social media. So maybe uninstall Facebook. Let's do that, and then let's move to Mastodon. But it's also tough because these are the platforms where you spread ideas. It's hard because to grow these movements, if we want to get people to use Solid, for example, we have to post on social media. So it's a really tough situation we find ourselves in, but I'm hopeful. I'm hoping the ACM is a part of that journey. So, so let's see. Thank you all for joining. Really appreciated the discussion today. Like Na mentioned, we hope to have another one. And yeah, Na, do you have anything else, any other notes for people?
I'm good, but I just want to thank you and guiding us having to have this wonderful conversation around this amazing book and also leaving us with many interesting questions to reflect on beyond this book club session. And to those of you who joined us today, thank you for your time. And also if you enjoy this conversation and also enjoy our book club, please help us spread the word. And we hope to see you next year.
Have a good
Yeah.
rest of your holidays too.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Have a happy
Bye.
holiday.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.
Happy
Bye.
Thank you.
holiday.
Yeah.